Nick and Andy, this is such a huge game this weekend, Man City against Arsenal. Let's take a deeper dive into the tactics, focus on where some of these key head-to-head battles are going to be all over the pitch. Nick, I'm going to come to you straight away. The one I'm really looking at is Rodri against Rice, the two R's in midfield. Who has the upper hand here? Because I think Rice might have a bit more help given some of the options Arsenal have available to them in midfield compared to Rodri maybe without John Stones next to him. That would be key, but these two guys, they are the heartbeat of their teams, aren't they?
They are. I mean, the midfield is the story, period. It's a story even who gets selected to play in the midfield. It is going to tell the tale of this game. I mean, you could be tempted to say, well, actually, if Erling Haaland gets on the ball, he'll tell the tale in this game. But the ball's got to get to him. And so much of what City does is predicated upon that, how they build, where it goes. The fact that in most games, Kevin De Bruyne is allowed to do whatever the heck he wants because of Rodri. So is there an upper hand? If there is, it's because of the health questions around Man City. Because if everybody's healthy and they're going head to head, this is just I'm trying to use the right term that isn't too gory. It's a fight. It's a street fight.
Yeah, it really is. And Andy, I think when we look at midfield, Jorginho probably holds the key to control in this game. Potentially, if he starts for Arsenal, his experience, along with Odegaard and Rice against Rodri, and then maybe it's Kovacic if John Stones is out, as looks likely. Does that kind of just give Arsenal the upper hand in midfield and in this game?
Man, that could go either way. I guess that depends on how you feel about Jorginho, right? Because there are two very distinct Jorginho camps. There's a lot of pro Jorginho people. Chelsea fans used to be among them. Arsenal fans are among them now. He's an acquired taste. I think as a player, he does a handful of things incredibly well. He does keep that control. He does keep the ball moving and taking over. I have some questions about his defensive work, and if City are playing through the middle of the field, he can become a turnstile a bit in there. And so it does go both directions. He has the big advantage alongside him, though, in Declan Rice, as good as he has been this season. And I think that's, at least when we're talking about the midfield battle specifically, I think that's the thing that, and I know Rodri's on the other side, but I would take Rice, Jorginho over Rodri, probably anybody else that's going to play in that, aside from John Stones, aside from anybody else that's going to play in that position for City. And so the midfield battle, which is, it's always what we come back to, right? In these big games, it's going to be settled in the middle of the field. I think it slants towards Arsenal just a little bit, and just the confidence that they've seemed to have been playing with in recent weeks. I don't think you can discount that, and I think there's been just enough uncertainty or just lacking a little bit in the performances from City of late. They could maybe just make them question it just a bit and give Arsenal maybe even the mental, the psychological, slight, very, very slight advantage going into this one.
Yeah, Declan Rice is the reason for me, one of the biggest reasons why Arsenal have closed this gap to City over the last 6 to 8 months. I've always been a huge fan of him. I'm delighted that he was named England captain for their friendly against Belgium over the international break. He is a future England captain when Harry Kane retires. So in my mind, he is the new heartbeat of this Arsenal team, makes them tick, and just does so many things that go unnoticed during the game that you can't really find many players like that anymore that are so unselfish and just make every single player around them better. So yeah, him and Rodri, I just love watching them play. Nick, I love watching Haaland and Saliba play. We didn't get to see that in Arsenal's defeat at Man City the end of last season, that pivotal one, because Saliba was out of an injury, and we saw how important that was for Arsenal down the stretch. So the fact he's back, he handled Haaland earlier on the season, and that 1-0 win for Arsenal in the Premier League. Can he handle Haaland again, do you think?
He can. I worry that when players who go against Erling Haaland, he's handleable for sure, if you are willing to have blind spots to what's going on around you. And I think that's where so often I'm used to see this quite a bit with Zlatan as well, not to make the same comparison. They're different players, but so much focus goes on Zlatan that you lose what's going on around him. And the way, I'll just pull one player, the way that a Phil Foden has looked lately and how quick he is. I think if Saliba starts to look at this as a 1v1 matchup, I think that's a win for Man City, excuse me.
Yeah, I think so, because obviously Gabriel's had an injury, didn't play for Brazil. So like he looks like he's going to be fit, but as a duo, it took all of their might and nous to get over Haaland earlier on the season. So I think that's probably the key for me, that as a pairing, Saliba and Gabriel have been excellent for the most part this season. But Haaland's Haaland, right? We've seen this season he's been a little bit rustier, not quite as clinical. Some of the bigger misses and missed opportunities we've seen recently, but he's still Erling Haaland. They're still going to get a lot of chances for him. And I just wonder if City are going to do what they did against Arsenal in the springtime last year, where they were so direct against Arsenal, where they dragged obviously the defenders up. And I think if Saliba's in there, he can handle that, and Gabriel can cover, and that's okay. So I think City are going to have to beat Arsenal in a bit of a different way this time, be it Foden, Doku out wide, and really focus on those areas. And another key battle, Andy, focus on there is Foden against Kiwior. Obviously, Kiwior's been brilliant recently, so is Foden. I just wonder if Foden's strengths just match up and just give him a much bigger edge against Kiwior. And maybe if Zinchenko might come in due to his knowledge of Phil Foden, but then defensively, Kiwior is better than Zinchenko, but Zinchenko's clearly better in possession and going forward in those areas. So I just wonder what you think about that particular battle.
What I think about that actually depends on what Pep does along the back line. You mentioned earlier this week, Joe, in recent game between these teams, Pep went back 4 kind of unexpectedly. He might have to do that again, because I'm looking. So we've talked about the injuries to the back line and the fact that it's Akanji and Walker, the 2 right-sided guys. So you've got Ruben Diaz on the bench, can come in and has played a lot this season. Okay, that's fine. The other center back, the other true defender on the bench is Josko Vardiol, and he is very much, 1, a left-sided player. 2, has been, I guess, a disappointment this season after the fee that was paid for him. Has not played nearly as much as you would have expected. And so either Pep is going to play a back 3 with somebody playing on an uncomfortable or unfamiliar side, or he's going to have to go to a back 4, bring Rico Lewis in probably at right back. And so then that completely changes what the battle is going to be. Foden, whether it's Kiwior, whether it's Zinchenko. I think Arteta will obviously be taking that into consideration when he decides Kiwior. There are so many dominoes in this game. And I think Nick made a great point. Like, these 2 teams, because of the managers, because of the players, are so incredibly similar. It's like they're looking at each other in a mirror. And so just the tactical, I wonder what's going through those 2 guys' heads right now. Pep and Arteta, as well as they know each other, as close as they are, as close as their philosophies align, and how they're preparing for this game to go head to head with each other in this one. Like, that's the battle that's already being waged. And then obviously we've got the game on Sunday. So it's just, this is, to answer your question, I think Phil Foden has a great game in this one, because he's been in incredible form, not just this season, but especially of late. And it looks like he is finally being given the freedom or the responsibility to ascend to that next level that I think a lot of people have expected from him for 2 or 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, you mentioned someone there. Rico Lewis could be a good option in terms of the John Stones role. He seems to be someone that could play in that role, but he hasn't played a lot recently. Maybe a bit of dip in form, a bit of a slump for him in his sophomore year as a Man City first-team player. But we'll have to wait and see how they line up there. One other thing I want to point out, Kai Havertz, if it is Ruben Diaz that maybe he comes up against, just his movement, the way that he opens up gaps, I feel like that could be huge in this game in terms of dragging City's defenders out from the positions they like to be in. They like to step high, but Havertz just really hard to mark in those areas and just opens up gaps for Trossard, Odegaard, and others. And Nick, go ahead, mate.
No, Joe, I think that you stitch together the last 2 points that we've made is perhaps the most interesting one for me, which is Gvardiol. This is a player who I think played almost, he's obviously very versatile, but he came here as a center back. A lot of us might have thought he was going to take Ruben Diaz's spot. And so the idea of both of them maybe twin towering, that could, I don't want to say save the back three, right? But it allows you to be a little bit more free with the guy on the right. So maybe that answers both of those questions, because Kai Havertz going to have a lot of, those are two big dudes in Diaz and Vardiol.
Yeah, and they've both been out of the team recently as well. I'm not exactly delighted about it. So this is a big opportunity for them potentially to get back in and be big players on this double treble push that Man City have going in the final months of the season. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com. We've got predicted lineups, team news, how to watch information on this massive game in the Premier League title race. The run-in is here. Man City against Arsenal. So little between these two teams. They know each other inside out, from the managers, players, tactics, you name it. This is going to be a fun one this weekend. Cannot wait.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.